So the story that the world thinks they know is that I am a master manipulator who's fooled everyone. That's my magic wand. Sorry. I'm gonna do ridiculous things because some of this is ridiculous.
Haven't you ever lied? And then has that lie been blown up and broadcasted around the world?
Guess who's back in the spotlight again? It's Sherri Papini. Sherri Papini is most known for her fake kidnapping in 2016.
I don't want to have to do the reenactments. Like, I wish I could just say, I don't remember getting in the car.
Now, Sherri Papini is telling her side of the story, and oh boy, is it quite a story.
The Sherri Papini that's out there, it's not me. It's just this version of me to fit the narrative for the media's version of what happened.
Also, her now ex-husband, Keith Papini, is telling his side of the story uncensored. And let me tell you, their two stories are quite different from one another. This story has so much true crime in it, it's almost unbelievable.
It was the 2016 scandal about a real-life gone girl. Headlines everywhere. The nation gripped. A California wife and mother missing for 3 weeks, only to be found alive.
911 emergency.
There's a lady on the side of the road needing help.
Sherri returned with disturbing claims of violence at the hands of two Hispanic female kidnappers.
CHP is advising he is heavily battered and it is confirmed kidnapped.
But one really big problem. It was all a lie.
The mysterious case of Sherri Papini's disappearance and reappearance, and the salacious details regarding what exactly may have happened while Sherri was missing, made headlines worldwide nearly a decade ago.
Next tonight, hear the desperate search for a missing mother in California.
Sherri Papini.
Sherri Papini.
Why did you lie?
I didn't do anything wrong.
Right now, you're not telling the truth, which is doing something wrong.
This is not the first time Papini has been back in the headlines since the day she went missing and then miraculously returned home to her family. But these headlines about Papini are different. For the first time, they contain details not only from Papini and her inner circle, but this time we also get the inside scoop from law enforcement, some members of which divulge unprecedented details about such a controversial case.
I'm Denise Farmer. I was the lead investigator on the Sherri Papini kidnapping case for the FBI.
The lead FBI investigator who was assigned to Sherri's case when she was still a missing person and who remained on the case after Sherri's reappearance has retired, and she has decided it's time the public know the truth about the Sherri Papini story.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, Keith wanted us involved immediately.
Everybody has said I need to demand to have the FBI involved. So if I can.
And Keith was kind of all over the place with what he wanted, but it's understandable. His wife is missing. And the only clues were the phone dropped in the grass area with her hair in it. That was basically the only clue. And that was a very odd clue.
The shocking information learned from this FBI agent is just part of the 4-part docuseries that just premiered on ID and Max. That's 4 hours of previously unknown details about Sherri's disappearing act, events in Sherri's life before she went missing that were a stark red flags about Sherri's stability and tendency towards deviancy and deception. The 4-part docuseries reveals new jaw-dropping information consistently throughout. Part 1 is called Exodus. Part 2, I'm a liar. Part 3, multiple truths. And part 4, it's complicated. I watched the whole thing, and I'm going to talk about it in this video for you. And we'll discuss the critical details of this story that were not included in the docuseries. The highly anticipated premiere inspired the 2020 series, an excerpt from which I played a couple minutes ago. This video that will tell a story about Sherri Papini's trials, tribulations, deceit, and revelations throughout her life during the missing persons event, that at first worried the nation and later perplexed the world.
Police in Redding, California, and family members of Sherri Papini are desperately trying to find this woman. It is such a mystery. Where is Sherri Papini?
And the fascinating information about Sherri Papini's exploits that has been recently disclosed for the first time to the public. That's us, y'all. We have a lot to talk about, so let's go.
Haven't you ever lied? And then has that lie been blown up and broadcasted around the world?
Let's start from the beginning. Who is Sherri Papini? Sherri Papini was born on June 11th, 1982. So that means right now she's 42, almost 43 years old. She was born on June 11th, so she is a Gemini. And as this story develops, you will come to realize that Sherri Papini is a Gemini in the true zodiac sense of the term Gemini. Like, she couldn't possibly be any more Gemini than she is. She met Keith Papini, her now ex-husband, when they were children. And they started dating in 7th grade. In fact, Keith was Sherri's first kiss. Sherri and Keith even went to the prom together. It seems when they were young, they created a whole lot of wonderful memories together. They got together later in life, and Keith recalls when he took Sherri out on a date, and he brought with him a box of notes that they had written to each other when they were just children.
We have a unique story. Years later, we kind of reconnected, and I remembered that I kept her notes that she wrote me. I took her out on a date, and I handed her a box, and of course it was like all our little love notes back and forth. No, like we were always meant to be, for sure.
Sherri was enamored from the beginning, and by all accounts, their love story was a fairy tale love story. The two had a rather short courtship as adults, and in 2009, following their fairy tale romance, they had a fairy tale-like wedding. Really, it looked like the wedding of a celebrity. The pictures are absolutely gorgeous. And then Sherri and Keith moved into the home that Keith Papini grew up in. It was his childhood home. 2 years after they were married, they welcomed their first child, their son Tyler, into the world. And shortly after that, their second child, a girl, Lily. Perfect. A beautiful couple, a white picket fence, 2 children, and a boy and a girl. What could go wrong in this situation?
The FBI said I made it all up.
Her then husband speaking his truth. I mean, essentially, you were the target of one of the biggest hoaxes perpetrated on America in years.
I should mention that in Sherri and Keith's fairy tale love story, it wasn't a straight shot for them to the altar to become man and wife. Sherri was married before she married Keith to a man named David Dreyfus. She married David Dreyfus in 2006, and their marriage was rather short-lived. Dreyfus was in the military, and he was gone a lot of the time, and according to Sherri, it was his absence that caused her to grow apart from him, and she eventually divorced him and then married Keith. Now, the two relationships did overlap, and in fact, we know that Sherri was cheating on David Dreyfus with Keith. And the marriage between Sherri and David was definitely not a conventional one. David Dreyfus was a platoon sergeant, and he spent much of his time during their marriage overseas. Sherri and David married in 2006, and Sherri claims that she spent a ton of time with him, and she traveled all over the world to meet up with him, and they had a wonderful relationship. However, records show that the two only lived together for 1 month. And David only lived in Redding, California, where Sherri lived this whole time, for 1 month. So that part makes sense. And in fact, they only saw each other one time during their entire marriage, and that was when David was overseas in Japan. Now, it is said that Sherri and David didn't have a conventional marriage in the sense it wasn't a marriage for love. Sherri apparently, according to many accounts, and we'll listen to more, feigned a heart condition throughout much of her life. And apparently, as it said, she married David Dreyfus to get access to his good health insurance benefits that he received through the armed forces. Additionally, David Dreyfus did tell the media that Sherri made regular egg donations to get money she would get paid from donating her eggs. And she reported that this caused her a number of health problems, and for that reason, combined with a heart condition, she desperately needed the health insurance. Now, David Dreyfus does not speak ill of Sherri, but he seems rather indifferent to the entire topic of Sherri Papini and their marriage together. So really, there is a lot of mystery surrounding their marriage, but from all the facts that are known, something is not right. One thing David did tell the media was that Sherri reported that she was abused by her family, particularly her dad, but also her mother when she was young, and he later found out that this was completely untrue. Now, take a listen to another person from Sherri's past. This man she dated, well, I say man, but really, when she dated him, Sherri was a youth counselor and she was 20 years old. And this man was then a boy, only 15 years old. And he has some interesting things to tell us about Sherri Papini.
He dated Sherri Papini and says he knows firsthand that she's a world-class fantasist.
She's a compulsive liar. She would, not talk to you for 3 or 4 days, and then all of a sudden there'd be some fantastical story about what happened. In retrospect, sure, tons of red flags, right? But she was a counselor that was going out with a 15-year-old kid.
Now 35, the professor of communications says Sherri's lies were never ending. For example, she kept insisting she was a skilled surfer.
I surfed all the time when I was 15, 16 years old. It's something that I really enjoyed doing, and she told me that she surfed as well. There was always an excuse as to why she couldn't go surf, and she had to have her surfboard that was at her house but didn't have any pictures.
He says there was also a mystery medical condition.
She was faking a heart condition at one point, and eventually, not only me, but a bunch of people figured out that that was not true.
What did you think when you heard that Sherri Papini was kidnapped?
I was like, there's no way. She's fine. I promise you she's fine. There's just no chance that she got kidnapped. I want to stop people thinking that I am the person that hit her or helped her or had any contact with her.
Interesting, right? So as this story develops, you will see that he is saying he doesn't want to be seen as the person who hit her or had any interaction with her or did anything terrible to her. Well, first of all, because he knows that she lies and tells others that a number of people in her life have abused her, but also another ex of Sherri Papini becomes a pivotal part in her faked kidnapping story. Wait till you hear all this. Now, we also know this about that particular boyfriend you just heard speak from court documents. Investigators also interviewed Man 2, that's Man 2, who described meeting Papini around 2000-2001 at a Friday Night Live youth program and dating her for several years. Man 2 described Papini as a attention-hungry person who told stories to try to get people's attention. Man 2 stated that Papini fabricated stories of being the victim of abuse from her family, father, and then Man 2 after the couple broke up.
I'm going to be weighing in on patterns and frankly on probabilities, which is a lot of what psychology is.
I absolutely love Dr. Romani. She is so sensible. And for those of you who don't know, I am a behavioral therapist, and the next video about this case is going to focus on the psychology and the pathological behavior of Sherri Papini. So stay tuned for that.
This person's already lied to us, so we're going to bet the odds that this person's going to keep lying to us. Those aren't bad odds. Human behavior is in some ways kind of dull. Past behavior predicts future behavior.
Sherri Papini.
Sherri Papini.
Why did you lie?
I didn't do anything wrong.
Right now, you're not telling the truth, which is doing something wrong.
Branding hockey pucks against her arms and legs.
Now, I had created a documentary about Sherri Papini's story, the fake kidnapping, and the fallout from the fake kidnapping about 3 years ago. And in that documentary, I reported that by all accounts, everyone said that Sherri was an amazing mother. She was very Martha Stewart-like, always attending the kids' events, making pies for activities the kids were involved with. She was like little Betty Crocker homemaker, according to the accounts that I'd heard and obtained at that time.
Sherri has been described as a super mom.
Yeah, she's always wanted to be home with her babies and to be an important role in their lives.
But since a few years have passed and everything in Sherri Papini's life has come into question, there have been other accounts of Sherri as a mom. Some say that she was rather ill-tempered, and some ask why, when she was a full-time stay-at-home mom, the children went to full-time daycare. I'll let you decipher that, but I do just want you to know that there are now two sides to the story of what Sherri Papini was like as a mother when she was in the home with her family. So then the question has to be asked, why would she ever be out of the home without her family?
Sherri was last seen about a mile from her home in Mountain Gate.
Search teams are looking everywhere, trying to piece together what happened to Sherri Papini.
She is considered at risk due to the suspicious circumstances.
Let's go back to November of 2016, November 2nd to be exact. The day started out just like all the rest for Sherri and Keith Papini and their two children. Sherri took the children to daycare and Keith headed off to his job at Best Buy. Sherri was planning on running in a 5K at that Thanksgiving time. I know locally here we have something called the Turkey Trot, which is a run for charity. It was something like that. On that day, Sherri had texted Keith around 10:30 a.m. to ask Keith if he was going to be home for lunch that day. As far as Keith knew, everything was going as planned that day. Again, it was just a day in the life of the Papinis, just like any other. When Keith arrived home after work that day, he arrived home to an empty house. Instead of seeing his wife there in the kitchen cooking and the children running around playing games with one another, there was radio silence in his home. He started looking around for Sherri, calling her name, looking around for his children, and to his horror, they were not there. He called the daycare center, and the children had not been picked up yet. Keith was absolutely terrified, alarmed to the nth degree. He called his mother to pick up the children, and immediately then, Keith called 911.
911, what is your emergency?
I just got home from work, and my wife wasn't there, which is unusual.
She was reported missing at about 5:30 p.m. on November 2nd.
Found her phone, and it's got like hair ripped out of it, like in the headphones. So I'm like totally freaking out, thinking like somebody grabbed her.
What's your wife's name?
Sherri, Sherri.
Okay, what's your last name?
Yes, Papini, Papini.
And your first name?
Keith.
Search is intensifying for a wife and mother who disappeared while jogging in Redding, California.
Sherri was last seen about a mile from her home in Mountain Gate.
Search teams are looking everywhere, trying to piece together what happened to Sherri Papini.
She is considered at risk due to the suspicious circumstances.
Her family suspecting something went terribly wrong.
Someone took our daughter, snatched her out of the thin air.
What does it feel like to have that thought that somebody has abducted your wife?
Scared? I was scared.
So that was Keith back then. We can all imagine the fear that Keith Papini and Sherri's family and the community of the rural town of Redding, California must have been feeling while Sherri Papini was missing. Sherri Papini was missing for an entire 3 weeks. And then on Thanksgiving Day, November 24th, 2016, 34-year-old Sherri Papini resurfaced. Apparently, as her story went, her captors at 4:30 in the morning released her, still bound, beaten, and even branded, 150 miles away from where she was captured.
That Thanksgiving Day, I got a phone call. She's been found. She was returned early Thanksgiving morning. Returned. The footage is out where she was running through the church parking lot, and then she made it onto the highway, I-5.
Now, when Sherri returned home, she had a chain around her waist and her wrists were zip tied, and she managed to flag down a motorist.
911 emergency, what are you reporting?
Hi, I have an emergency. There's a lady on the side of the road needing help.
Okay.
Her name is Sherri Papini.
Now, when Sherri returned, she had significant bruising on her face. She had what appeared to be burn marks. She had lost a significant amount of weight, and she had a branding on her back. Now, at first, the police did not release a lot of information about this brand because, of course, they didn't want to release details so their investigation would be more effective and so they could find the captors of Sherri Papini. But the brand said Exodus. And to this day, nobody knows the meaning of Exodus, why Sherri chose for Exodus to be branded on her back.
We couldn't figure out why they would brand her with Exodus. So when we looked at all the different passages of Exodus, they're talking about gathering straw, getting frogs out of the home, and frogs going back to the Nile. It made absolutely no sense.
The Sherri Papini that's out there, it's not me. She's not real. It's just this version of me that has been created to fit the narrative for the media's version of what happened.
There's this version of the story of, oh, you're only talking now because you got caught. And it's about time. I'm so f***ing tired of keeping the secret and living the lie. Now I get to tell the truth.
Interesting, because it sure is hard to tell what is fact, what is truth, and what is fiction when it comes to the words that come out of Sherri Papini's mouth. Now, when Sherri Papini returned home after those 22 days on Thanksgiving morning, early in the morning, she had to have a story to tell her husband, to tell the authorities, to tell her family, to tell the public. So what did she tell them? Well, she told them that she was kidnapped by 2 Hispanic women, one small one and one large one. Sherri even came up with a sketch for the sketch artist to create of these 2 women, as you see right here. Apparently, they wore masks all during her captivity, all the less work for Sherri having to do when she explained to the sketch artists what these 2 women looked like, right?
Keith called and said Sherri was wondering if we could get a sketch artist. So I said, sure, I'll get you a sketch artist. I'll have him out here next week. Not a problem. I'll get one of the best ones we can find in Quantico.
Today, a break in the case. 2 sketches of Papini's kidnappers.
I was never allowed to look them in the face. The little one, the bigger one was very forceful.
The very day that the sketches were released to the public, shocking news was learned by the public. They found male DNA on Sherri's underwear, the underwear that she was wearing, or a pair of the underwear she was wearing during her captivity. Male DNA, and it did not belong to Keith Papini.
Investigators released evidence showing DNA of a man was found on the clothes Papini was wearing when she was found.
Now, the very interesting thing about this male DNA is in Sherri's account of her kidnapping, she did not once, in all the details that she told about these 2 Hispanic women and what happened, she did not once mention a man being there. So where did this DNA come from? In addition to that male DNA, Sherri had another problem. The FBI, including the lead investigator on the case, was not buying her story, not one bit, even with all of its details.
She would have these episodes and she would be dramatic and fold into herself and begin to cry. There were never really any tears down her face. It was a pretty difficult situation because now she's flipped from our victim to our subject. But we are still treating her like our victim because you do not want to come out and tell somebody they're a liar if they're not a liar. We need to have all of our evidence, and we need to be able to factually prove that this didn't happen. And eventually the DNA would be that luck that we needed.
Now, a couple of clips from Sherri Papini's first interview with law enforcement. And I'd like to thank the channel Crime Circus for being the only YouTube channel that I know of that actually obtained this interview footage. That's why you see the Crime Circus stamps right there. And again, thank you so much. Drip drop from Crime Circus. The first clip is the 1 or 2 times that Sherri Papini even pretends to be crying in the entire over 2-hour interview. So I want you to see what this investigator is talking about when she says Sherri Papini had no tears. She was going through the motions, but there were no tears. Now, you'll notice that one of the interviewers says to her, "Do you want to come back to the table?" That's because when they asked her about what happened on that day, first of all, she just started talking about nonsense, joyfully in a certain way, and we're going to look at that too. But when she started to get to the serious part, the part that was supposed to be about her abduction, she stands up from the table and she closes her eyes and she walks away and she acts like she's going through the motions. And I personally think this is so she didn't have to look them in the eye. She didn't have to have them see her face while she is starting to tell them this grandiose lie.
Do you want to come back up to the table?
And then I got up and went this direction. And I can't remember lifting my leg. I can't remember the back door open.
Take a drink of water if you need to. And I want to run something by you and see if this might be able to help a little bit. Breath, do some more. You're good. You're recalling things from like your first person view, correct? And you're going through, you're seeing it through your own eyes. Do you understand what I mean by that? You're doing good.
Now for the next clip, let me give you a little bit of context. The investigators spend a lot of time trying to make Sherri feel very comfortable with them, telling personal stories about themselves, telling stories about other crimes that they've investigated, really appealing to her sensitivities, maybe even a little bit to her ego. And then they finally ask her to start talking about the day in question. Well, after they just ask her more open-ended, start from the beginning, she doesn't know where to start because nothing ever happened. So just listen to what she has to say and let me know, leave a comment down below. How does this strike you?
Where would you like to start?
I have no idea.
Okay, so on November 2nd, 2016, what happened? Yep, let's start us off on the day.
From the beginning.
Yeah, let's start with there and see what happens.
Let's talk about the Christmas present with Keith.
Okay.
I started wrapping a Christmas present for Keith, a little American flag pillow that Tyler and I had picked out the night before at Kohl's. And I couldn't find any tape. I had taped one side, ran out of tape, and then couldn't find any more tape anywhere else. Got very frustrated, left it on the ground and left it open because there was no more tape to complete the wrapping of it. Did my usual routine, fed the chickens, cleaned the house, cleaned everything, just the usual. Nothing, yeah. Text message my husband to come home for lunch, which, looking back is quite embarrassing. Keeps like, thanks for, that last text message. Honey, will you please come home to have sex with your wife for lunch?
So if you think there is something wrong with the way that Sherri is acting or the story that you've learned that she has told, there is good reason. And that reason is...
it was all a lie. Her ex-boyfriend passed a polygraph admitting she was at his house the whole time. He says she even asked him to brand her.
That boyfriend's name is James Reyes. And oh boy, if you think the story is crazy so far, there are still so many more twists to come. Now, before we get into any of the details about what Sherri was really doing during the time that she was supposedly abducted and held captive, let's go back to the 2 Latino women that she blamed for holding her captive and abducting her in the first place. It was all a farce. They never even existed. Now, why in the world did she decide to create 2 fictional Latino women as her abductor? I mean, does that make any kind of sense at all? Well, it just might after you hear what I have to tell you about the connection between Sherri Papini's life and her 2 fictional captors. And oh boy, this gets really deep and is multifaceted. After Sherri's kidnapping was determined to be a hoax, detectives examined a bizarre racially charged blog post in which someone purporting to be the kidnapped California mom of 2 spews hatred towards Latinos and says she's proud to be white. But here's the thing. It wasn't somebody spoofing or trying to hurt Sherri Papini, because this blog post was written in 2003. That's right, 2003. And her faked kidnapping happened in 2016. The 2003 post was written by an individual claiming to be Sherri Graff, and that's Papini's maiden name. And it's been circulated online since her disappearance. Well, since the world found out her disappearance was a hoax. Now, I personally don't think that her maiden name is a very common name, so is it a coincidence, or did Sherri really write this? Well, there are some interesting parallels between the author, who has Sherri's maiden name, and Sherri Papini's youth as we know it to be. In the letter that I'm about to read you, she references playing volleyball and getting good grades in school. And these are a few of the things that we do know about Sherri Papini's younger years that are agreed on by everybody. She played volleyball, she was interested in theater, and she got pretty good grades. She worked really hard in school. There are some other parallels between the life of the person as it's described in this racist narrative and Sherri Papini's actual life, and I will explain those after I read this letter. Are you guys ready for this? Now, something very important to know about this letter or this blog post is it was found on the pro-white, largely racist website skinheads.com, which is no longer active. It says, I grew up in a small country town, Shasta Lake, California. My school was predominantly white. It was a small enough town that everybody pretty much knew each other. I was known as a really good athlete, and my dad had a reputation for being my biggest fan, but also standing up against Latinos. He even was often kicked out of the stands for getting in fights and defending himself when the Latinos would call him Nazi. Seems that our simply being of German descent was a constant irritant to them. I would get into fights too, having to stick up for myself instead of knuckling under what the Latino girls said I wanted. I got excellent grades, 3.9 to 4.2, but grew more and more resentful of school and conditions around me. I used to come home in tears because I was getting suspended from school all the time for defending myself against the Latinos. The chief problem was that I was drug-free, white, and proud of my bloody heritage. This is this really irked a group of Latino girls, which would constantly rag and attack me. One night, my volleyball game, my homecoming game, I spotted this gang of Latinos sitting behind my father. As the game was coming to an end, I kept seeing my dad snap around and look behind him, like he was getting hit by something. Then I caught out of the corner of my eye those little devils throwing ice at my dad and mocking him by raising their hand in the air as if they were saluting Hitler. After the game was over, we shook hands with the other team. I walked up to the bleachers towards my dad. Just at that moment, he turned around. I told the Latinos nicely, actually, to quit their acting up. One of them called me Hitler, unleashed a barrage of profanity against my dad, and took a swipe at me. This really teed me off. I don't think I've ever been so mad. I lunged back at her, slamming her head between the bleachers and pounding her face. It took 3 full-size men to pull me off of her. I broke her nose and split her eyebrow. After the game, they got me out of the gym, and I had to deal with the cops and such. She did not press charges, so I was released to my parents' custody. Which brings me to the point of why girls should not fight. We are just too fragile and break easily. I totally agree with skinheads that girls should not fight. They should stand by their men. But sometimes, I guess you have to do what is necessary when a skinhead isn't on hand. On the way up the bleachers, when I rebuffed the Latinos, I had split my leg open and it was hard for me to walk. But when my dad picked me up from the police department, the only thing he kept saying to me was, "Cher, I'm proud of you. You did the right thing. Keep on walking. Don't let your legs slow you down. Keep walking, Cher." It was a happy feeling to have such support from my dad. 2 weeks later, I was closing the family pizza joint we owned when 2 cars pulled up. I didn't even have to turn around to see who it was. I instinctively knew who it was. 3 Latino guys and 5 girls rushed in and jumped me. I put up a fight, but I was clearly outnumbered and at a disadvantage. Jessie, the girl whose nose I broke, was with them. They kept hollering about how they hated skinheads, how all skinheads should be burned alive, and how I and my ancestors were supposedly all KKK. I actually laughed in their faces at the inaccuracy of their statements. I mean, they were so dumb that it was actually funny. How dumb can you be? There wasn't even a skinhead anywhere in sight. Then I got knocked off the floor and kicked in the face. I took a deep breath, shook my head in disbelief. Can this really be happening? I thought to myself. Then I thought, is it worth it? Is being white and standing up for myself and my beliefs worth all this pain I'm having to put up with? Then I heard the echo of my dad's voice. "You did the right thing. Keep walking, Cher. I'm proud of you." It was that pride that gave me the will I needed right then and there. I took a deep breath, let out a cuss word, and just got right back up swinging. I don't ever swear like that, but somehow the word just slipped out, just as Jessie kicked me in the stomach and others hit me in the face a few times. Then, before I saw it coming, whack! One of them smashed me in the shin with a 2x4, fracturing my leg. But I kept fighting back so tenaciously that they all saw that they could not defeat me, so they all suddenly ran out the door. My house was about 9 or 10 blocks away. I limped the whole way home. I'm not sure how I made it, but I still heard the sound of my dad's voice. "Keep walking, Cher. Keep walking." I guess the point is that even though I didn't always understand why my life had to be a constant battle, our family values between myself and my dad carried me through. My dad was always there with me in spirit. Being white is more than just being aware of my skin, but standing behind skinheads who are always around in spirit as well, and having pride for my country. Being white is my family, my roots, my way of life. It's always there. There's no denying it. It's nobility. It's strength. It will be there to lift me up when I really need my strength, when I need to keep walking. Damn. So again, this blog post was authored in 2003, and it's under Sherri Papini's maiden name. So in 2003, Sherri Papini would have been 20 or 21 years old. What do you think about this blog post? Do you think it was authored by Sherri Papini? What we know is law enforcement had some suspicions about that 2003 blog post and questioned if Sherri Papini was, in fact, the author of that blog post. Sherri's second interview with law enforcement occurred 5 days after she returned home from the hoax kidnapping. Towards the end of that interview, law enforcement asked Sherri about the blog post. And take a listen.
The blog that has surfaced from a while back about the Hispanics and some thoughts or comments that people are spinning up. Can we clarify some of that stuff?
Yes, and it's awful because there's so much that my family is going through, and it's, I mean, I'm sure you guys know everything, and I understand why you have to know everything, but my life wasn't perfect before this. It's just an awful feeling that all of everything and the made up things, it's just a disgusting, yucky feeling of what it's doing to my family.
Sherri used the words icky, yucky, disgusting, ewy to describe things that happened while she was kidnapped, apparently, and in captivity, and around that time, and the effect it had on her and her family. Icky, yucky, disgusting, ewy. Her reaction to these oftentimes horrific events really lacked any kind of anger or intense emotion at all, which is not how real victims behave. In Sherri's initial response, when law enforcement first raised this topic, she seems to be treading lightly. Sherri does not know if law enforcement knows who really authored that blog post. Now, I would think that the FBI would be able to figure out if I authored a blog post or not, right? But Sherri's probably wondering, could they have done that because it was written in 2003? So she just talks about how all of this is affecting her family so negatively, as though she's not the one that caused all this negative experience for her family by lying to them and disappearing for 22 days when they did not know if she was even dead or alive.
My life wasn't perfect before this. It's just a disgusting, yucky feeling of what it's doing to my family.
Take note of her statement, my life wasn't perfect before this. Does that seem like a sensible response if you are asked by law enforcement about something horrible, a very racist blog post you may have written years ago, if you aren't the one who actually wrote it? Strange, isn't it? Remember, she's still not sure if law enforcement knows the real deal about this blog post.
Put it to bed, obviously people are drawing the conclusions that you're reporting to Hispanics did this. You wrote some, I'm assuming, did you write the blog?
No.
Okay. How did the blog get written or posted under your name? Or do you have any idea?
No, I have no idea.
Now, when the agent asks, well, did you write that blog post? And Sherri knows or thinks that they do not know who wrote the blog post, she now gives a clear denial. No, because now she has some information about what law enforcement may or may not know. And so now she can spin her lies safely. She doesn't have to tread so lightly anymore. Sherri can now do her thing.
You wrote some, I'm assuming, did you write the blog?
No.
Okay. How did the blog get written or posted under your name? Or do you have any idea?
No, I have no idea.
And
I mean, are you guys even familiar with Central Valley High School?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no.
That response was really weird. He asks if she wrote the blog post, and she responds by saying, are you even familiar with Central High School? And he says, well, yeah. To which she replies, yeah, no, like that doesn't even make sense. Sherri is definitely thrown off her lion A game by this probably unexpected question from law enforcement.
Okay. Because, I mean, obviously the blog is written under your maiden name.
I was an athlete.
Right.
I played sports. My parents didn't go to any of my games.
So
I mean,
all
there's
there was never
doesn't
an
even
incident.
make sense. No, it doesn't. No,
So there's
absolutely
things in the
not.
blog that we can investigate.
Of course.
And we did.
Great.
And we couldn't find any of that stuff.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Stand by.
But there are aspects of it that people can find truth in.
They are clearly suspicious about Sherri's authoring this blog post. And Sherri is doing something that is a classical technique people who are being deceptive employ, and that is to just not answer the question. To not answer the question and talk about things that don't have to do with the question that was asked or the direct topic at hand, to try to circumvent talking about the topic at all. This is classic deception.
And I know you were never in custody, where you spent the night in jail. We talked to your dad. He never recalls any types of fights. I have some school records that don't put you suspended and stuff like that. But the post, obviously, it's showing up on this skinhead website. Huge. But it
Didn't people say my head's shaved now too? Sorry.
can't hear all the noise. But it originates from a MySpace account. We call them blogs now, but it's not. It originates from a MySpace account. Have you ever had a MySpace account?
Not that I can remember. I mean, that's.
It's old school.
Yeah. No. I mean, I had even the Facebook page that I had was for a very short period of time. It's not for a very long period of time.
Prior to all this stuff, have you guys ever seen that blog before? Ever heard of it? You know which one I'm referring to, right? The one about the Latinos behind her dad, giving her shit, and all that kind of stuff.
I've seen something similar to that.
The one that is out there now, no. There was something similar.
Oh, wait a minute. So there's something similar. There's another racist blog post, apparently authored by Sherri Papini and her maiden name from years ago. Now there's not just one, but there are two. This gets very, very interesting. Let's keep listening.
There was something similar, and first thing I asked her, I was like, the heck is this? And she said it was fake, just like back then, although there was a picture, and I didn't, like, what is all this about? And we tried to get some, lawyer guy to take that photo off, because we don't know how it got on this website.
I've been trying to remember his name.
But like you just said, there's all this fake stuff, and we have no idea, and we haven't ever had an idea on how it was written or formed.
When we had found it, I contacted a lawyer about getting it removed. And they had discussed, this is...
Finding out who created it.
Yes, this needs to be removed. It's obviously not me. And he couldn't get anywhere with getting it removed.
What is it?
The
article that they had.
The one that you guys are talking about.
Is it the Keep Walking? The one titled Keep Walking?
Let me see what you're talking about here.
I know. Well, I want to clarify this because now I'm confused about something else. So.
Yes, this one.
That's the same one we're talking about with the picture, or are we talking about two?
That was the same one, but that one is written differently than what we were talking about. But it was Keep Walking. I remember that.
How would we start over? I think I'm confused. Are you still there?
You can take it from there.
All right. So the Keep Walking article, that's the one that's been focused and recently, that is similar to a past thing that you guys dealt with.
Correct. So bottom line, it's fake. It's even more elaborate now, it appears. I don't remember it because it was so long ago.
People are trying to spin it off as that this is the catalyst for what happened to you.
No, and
that I'm trying to shut that down.
A week before that, I did it for the money, I think, and I'll address
no.
this.
Yeah.
So
That's why we're here.
Hey,
Yeah.
remember yesterday we talked about some things that were going to be hard?
Yeah.
That are going to irritate
Well,
you?
this is where
And that's where this is hard for me because
I have to deal with all this dumb thing. But
so
500 tips.
yeah, I wasn't.
You about
you know
10.
what? I wasn't a perfect person before this, and that's.
But what do you
all this
mean by that?
crap.
There we are. She returns to the statement, I wasn't a perfect person before this happened or back then. Well, she's clearly trying to soften something or some things that she knows law enforcement is going to find. And I'm really happy that he followed up with a question. Well, what do you mean by that? So let's listen to the stupid answer she gives.
So what do you mean by that?
I skipped school and
Ran away?
did dumb kid stuff, and I had a really shitty relationship with my parents, excuse my vulgar language.
Okay.
And I lived at the Heart Center for a long time.
Okay.
I stayed in my high school gym at some times. I mean,
Okay, she is clearly getting nervous and she's throwing in all of the lies that she's got in her kitchen sink. So she says, I stayed at the Heart Center at times. Remember the multiple people that reported that she faked having a heart condition? Well, I did look it up, and there is a heart center in Redding, California. And when I researched the Heart Center in Redding, California, guess what I came up with? I came up with the Shasta Regional Medical Center. See here is a Google search result. So you click on that and you see that, yes, they do have cardiac services. Okay. And you scroll down a little bit and you see the other services that they offer, including the first one listed is behavioral health. So you click on that and you find that their behavioral health services is an inpatient program for people who have behavioral health issues or emergencies needing attention and care to the point where they need to be admitted. So I have to wonder if her being admitted to the hospital for behavioral health reasons is the root of her lie about having a heart problem. I stayed at the Heart Center. Does that mean I stayed in the hospital because I was admitted for behavioral health issues? And if you're wondering why I would even suggest that she may have been staying in the hospital for behavioral health issues, aside from Sherri Papini's current events in her adult life that we know about, just wait. I'm going to give you a whole lot of information that is going to totally explain why one might reasonably make that assumption.
What's hard for her when she started talking about this and hearing that kind of stuff is like when she got her CCW and they ran her fingerprints or whatever, and they were like, what's this breaking and entering charge?
Sure.
And she was really hurt by that and she was confused. And then I remember she was telling me the story and she asked them, well, what's the address? And it was her home address because her parents called the cops on her for breaking into her home.
for opening the back door to get my basketball shoes
So
for
when
a
she's
basketball
reminded of her,
tournament,
like,
if that gives you any
childhood.
indication of my childhood with my parents.
We read it.
And that's why the whole time we're like, I don't know, they're still calling up.
Your parents in our office didn't get off on the right foot on day one of this anyway, so I hear you.
I have zero desire whatsoever to even see them right now, and I find that to be very odd.
There was a problem before too.
A
Just
huge
started, right?
problem.
You guys heard the voice.
And that's something I thought about a lot too, because it was my aunts and my sister and my mom and my dad.
So if you remember, what are the main differences from the blog that we have a copy of, the blog we're reading now, as opposed to the old one you guys were dealing with?
He's trying to keep me away from this. So
Yeah, what's the main differences that you remember?
I feel like it's everything.
I don't remember. I don't remember what I said before or now, except for it looks way longer. The one that I came across when we got back together, that had the little photo, was like a paragraph long. It seems like the last one that I've just now recently seen is like it's been added to and stuff.
Okay, we've got a lot to unpack there. So again, we get more discussion about the two different racist blog posts authored by somebody with Sherri Papini's maiden name back in 2003 that, were just like bad material that no one would want to own up to. But, you're like, okay, it was a long time ago. Yeah, I wrote that, especially when you're being asked about it by an FBI agent, particularly after you've committed such a horrible crime that she committed in hoaxing everybody about the kidnapping. And we don't even know all the details just yet because there's so much more to come. Oh my God, this story is crazy. But then there's also the issue of Sherri mentioning, the breaking into her house, or, I just had to get basketball shoes and some other issues that she had with her family. So let's find out what the deal is according to evidence and police reports and 911 records. On October 1st, 2000, Papini's sister, Sheila Graff, alleged that Sherri kicked in her back door, but she wasn't unsure if anyone actually got into the house. She didn't notice anything missing, but apparently it was aggressive. It was a break-in technically, and she did make a police report. Now, later on that same day, Sherri's father, Richard Graff, made a report saying that Sherri vandalized their home. So we have two family members on that same day making two separate police reports. So listen, something happened on that day, but the records that we have to date, and I have done some FOIA requests to see if there's any more, don't really have any conclusion as to what that event was. Now, 3 years later, on October 3rd, 2023, Sherri's dad made a report saying that she used his credit card, his debit card, without his permission, that she made an unauthorized withdrawal from his bank account. Now, Sherri told authorities that she had just mixed up the cards and whoops, and she eventually returned the money, but Sherri's dad says that she never should have had access to that card, and she did, in fact, take that card and make an unauthorized withdrawal. So that is theft, and then, of course, lying about it to cover it up. Do we see a pattern, Dr. Romani?
Oh, past behavior predicts future behavior.
In December 17th of 2003, so this is just like 2 months after the father reported that Sherri had stolen his ATM card and used it, Loretta Graff, Sherri's mother, made a police report alleging that her then 21-year-old daughter had been harming herself and blaming it on her mother. So the log states that Loretta Graff, Sherri's mother, was calling 911 asking for advice. She was concerned, and rightfully so, because Sherri was going to be moving back in with her mom, and Sherri's harming herself and saying that her mother hurt her and telling other people that her mother hurt her. So she wanted advice from law enforcement. And she also wanted to make a record of this happening. So if something happened down the road and Sherri harmed herself and then blamed it on her mom, there would be a record made. This is a very smart move. It also tells us a whole lot about what Sherri's mother knew about her own daughter and her potential.
I mentioned, like, what the heck is this?
Do you remember what lawyer you went through to try to get that cleaned up?
And that's what I'm trying to remember for you guys.
It should be an email.
We're talking years ago. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I really don't remember. If you gave me like a list of lawyers in writing, I might be able to pick his name out because it seems like it was ethnic.
Because it seems like it was ethnic in regard to her lawyer's name. She can't remember her alleged lawyer's name, whose name she can't remember. I might be able to remember it if you give me a list of lawyers because it was ethnic. What an ironic, I guess, thing to say when you're being questioned about racist blog posts that you made in the past after you were allegedly just kidnapped and accused 2 Latino women, one big one and one little one, of kidnapping you, which never made sense to anyone. The following day, after that second interview with Sherri Papini, which was 5 days after her return, this press conference was made and aired around the country and the world.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today and attending this press conference regarding the Sherri Papini case. Sherri described her assailants as 2 Hispanic female adults. Sherri did her best that she could in providing the descriptions, but was not able to provide a detailed description due to the suspects covering their faces, and at times, Sherri's head was covered.
And as the story goes, there was never 2 Hispanic women that abducted Sherri Papini. But Sherri Papini's lies about her hoax kidnap were successful in a way for 5 whole years. She kept telling people that these 2 Hispanic women, the big one and the little one, abducted her. Through a course of interviews, she gave the FBI and local police great detail about the time she spent in captivity, being chained around the waist with a rope that was attached to a bar in the closet, and getting branded and having her hair cut, and how she obtained all of the bruises and burns and injuries on her entire body.
Making my stomach hurt. That the little one, the bigger one was very forceful, and it just, to me, the little one would defend herself and do what was asked, maybe. I don't speak Spanish, but I feel like the bigger one enjoyed it and the little one did not. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely, the things like the burn, cutting my hair, the burn on my arm, the chain, the lock, that was all from the bigger one. It was not from the little one. The little one would feed me most often. The little one's the one that I said with the trash can. She was the one that would stand in the doorway at the shower.
What'd you usually eat?
She was the one that would bring in the clothes also. The bigger one never did that. You're asking questions.
Sorry. I thought you were on a standard pause.
Anyway, so.
And then the FBI found, through genetic DNA testing, genetic genealogy, 5 years after the kidnapping happened, DNA on Sherri Papini, and it was the DNA of her ex-boyfriend, James Reyes.
This had never really been seen by anybody in this area. Well, this isn't the FBI's first rodeo. It has been seen before, and worse has been seen. She did not count on DNA, and she didn't count on the FBI.
James Reyes' DNA on Sherri Papini's clothes, the FBI went to interview him immediately, and at first he denied everything. He denied that he had talked to Sherri Papini since, well, over a decade ago. In fact, Reyes didn't talk until something very interesting happened between Reyes and an FBI agent. I think one of the most interesting parts of the interrogation with James Reyes, or the interview with James Reyes, is that the FBI agent sees a picture of James' brother Nick, his deceased brother Nick, who passed away a few years ago. And in that picture, there is a table. And that table in that picture, to the FBI agent, looked exactly like the table that Sherri's husband, Keith, drew for her based on Sherri's description of the table that she was chained to and leaning over when she got branded.
So that's Nick. That's Knickers?
Yeah.
Who's Knickers?
It's my brother, Nick.
This is Nick?
Yeah, he was actually was right here. I had a big, I have another beanbag. But
That's where this picture was taken?
Yeah, he was.
In here?
Yeah, he was sleeping. But that was, I don't know how long ago that was.
Wow. Can you show me this where it was taken? Like, so I can see?
Yeah, the TV's right there. It's actually not that beanbag, it's a black one.
That's a similar beanbag.
Yeah.
Oh, I see the wood paneling there. Can I come in?
Yeah, I mean.
I want to see, like, which direction. He was, like, sitting, like, right here, right?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I have to take her potty. I have to pick her up and put her in the bathroom.
That's a full-time deal.
Yeah, this is hers actually. I just moved this when I moved, but there was mine.
So coming back to this picture, this is your deceased brother Nick.
Yeah.
He was just hanging out, and so you took this picture?
I don't think so. I'm not even sure. Maybe. I know it's a long time ago. That was when I first moved in here, and then he moved in a year or so later after he graduated. So I'm sure.
And so this table? Yeah. Where's that table?
That table is gone. That one's been broken for a while.
Okay.
The kids jump on it, broke it down.
When did it break?
Oh, wow, back. It broke actually years and years ago, but I just threw it away about a month ago. I was just
really?
Yeah, because it was cracked. The kids jumped on it, snapped the bottom, and with her here.
Was the top cracked too?
Everything was cracked. And then when I first moved in here, I was single and we partied. My cousin, we drank, we partied, drank. I mean, these are all stains throughout the years of beer.
Huh.
But,
and so this was here. It looks like the same carpet.
Well, yeah, it's pretty stained under here. So I had to roll this over, and then this has been an adventure with her in my own life. Been pretty thrash.
And here's the crazy thing, James.
Pretty thrash. Maybe I took that.
This is the table Sherri said she was on when she was abducted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she showed us this picture. Just said, hey, it looks like this. Which looks exactly like your table.
And we haven't talked to Sherri yet. We can talk to you first.
That's fine.
So we just want to understand what's going on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had that table here literally just about a month ago.
Because I really see only two options. Either she came down here on her own, and I don't know why, or you arranged for these gals to go up there and get her.
Yeah.
So the agent goes on to ask, like, oh, the table was here, and so is it the same carpet? And he's looking around now, and he's asking about all these various things that match the drawings that Keith drew based on Sherri's description of her experience in the place she was held captivity. Now, guys, I think that is awesome investigative work, and I just wanted to point that out. Really interesting point that we can pick up in the James Reyes interview. After the investigators visited James Reyes and spoke with him at his house and realized that that is where Sherri was, in fact, staying for the 22 days she was apparently abducted, then held captive somewhere, they administered a polygraph examination, and he passed with flying colors. In the ID docuseries, we heard recorded statements from some of Sherri Papini's friends and people from her past.
She kind of has a habit of just disappearing. This is something she's done multiple times in her life.
There's also a story that was corroborated by several people that Sherri was at a party with some people one night and they were playing the Wii. Remember the Wii? And she hit herself in the head and face with the Wii remote. And the next day, she told people that the injuries that resulted from her hitting herself with the Wii control were because her husband Keith had been beating and abusing her. This clearly tracks from the multiple accounts of people saying that Sherri would tell them that whoever was her ex-boyfriend or whoever she was in the process of breaking up with was physically abusing her, was beating her. This tracks with reports from her family, her mother calling 911, being afraid that Sherri was going to blame the injuries Sherri had from hurting herself on her mother. The fact that she told people that her parents physically abused her as a child. And this pattern of Sherri's of claiming abuse by nearly everybody she's close with has very much to do with why James Reyes got involved in the first place. 4.5 years after the hoax kidnapping, Sherri returned to talk with investigators because the new evidence was found in the case, and it was the DNA. Listen to this point in the interview when Sherri Papini learns that James told them everything, and hear what she has to say.
So, was it prior to your marriage?
It's him. There is no way it's him.
Well, it is James.
The DNA tells us that it was his DNA on you.
The DNA alone says it's him. And when we talked to him, confronted him with the DNA,
He told us what happened.
He 100% told us what happened.
And gave us details that nobody else would know.
And we can call him and we can all talk about it. But ultimately, can you look at me for a second? Ultimately, we put him on a polygraph like we did Keith. Keith was inconclusive, to be honest with you, on whether he was involved or not. But 100% James was showing the truth. The questions were, did Sherri ask you to come pick her up? He answered yes. That was the truth on a polygraph. We asked him if the two of you ever had sex. The answer was no.
During 2016.
During 2016, during the abduction, he said no. That was the truth. We asked him if you asked him to brand you. The answer was yes. And he passed the polygraph on all of those questions.
Sherri was just told, with her husband Keith present, that James passed his polygraph examination, and these were the questions. Did Sherri ask you to pick her up on November 2nd, 2016, the day she was supposedly abducted? To which he answered, yes. Did you have sex with Sherri while she was there? To which he answered, no. And did Sherri ask you to brand her? To which he answered, yes. And all of those answers were found to be truthful.
He took us to the stores where he bought the chain. We talked to the friend who rented the car. The car that he rented drove over 900 miles in a day on the drop-off point.
Sure, I know this is a lot to take in. But it's not like we don't know the answers to these questions.
And the fear of Keith's reaction, obviously now he's in the room, the fear of media, the fear of all of these things are coming forward, they're in front of you now. The only way to get a hold of it, the only way for everybody to come together and heal, the whole community has to heal, is for us to be able to say, when we presented all of the evidence, all of the stuff that came forward, you told us the truth. You told us what happened. Because you did go in a dark room, that's true. You did lay in the back seat of the car, that's true. You did lose weight, you were branded, your hair was cut. You did have bruises all over. But how those bruises got there are because you did it and James did something. The reason why your nose got broke is because you held the hockey stick to your face and he forced it into your nose. The reason why the brand is in a straight line is because he did it. He described exactly where it was. He told us exactly how he did it, where he did it, how he did it.
Something really funny about the ID docuseries Caught in a Lie is that a lot of things that Sherri had to say in that docuseries incriminated herself in this incident as being the one who had the ideas to do what was done to her and actually went through with harming herself or having someone else harm her. Listen to this very short excerpt from James Reyes' initial interview with the FBI when they went to visit him in Santa Monica, California.
What about the burns?
That was us, you know.
How did that happen?
Where's the tool?
Huh? Oh, that is just trash. It wasn't mine. We bought it. It was like a,
Where'd you buy it from?
what do you call it? A wood bearing tool.
Where'd you buy it from?
Hobby Lobby or Hobby. There's two Hobby. Yeah, I mean, they're probably like $20 or something. I mean, it was cheesy plastic thing with a little metal thing.
So what did it?
So, I mean, like I said, I was.
Explain to me what it was and how it was used and what happened.
I don't remember what even was on her. because this was her stuff. None of this is my thought up thing. Like, okay, we should do that because it's gonna look. I mean, I don't even know what it said, and I don't remember what it was. She wanted it.
So how did it happen?
She just had me. She asked me.
In Sherri's August 2022 interview with law enforcement, they tell her the other evidence they have showing that Sherri planned her faked kidnapping. She planned it all along. So Sherri told James to go buy a wood-burning tool at a hobby store, which he did, and that is what he used to brand her.
When James and I were talking to each other, it was October. So it was when I was crafting and I was getting Christmas presents together, and I was getting everything ready, and I would craft. Dad would cut these and we'd shave them down and then burn the letters in them.
You put all that together, that is enough for me to be 100% certain that the brand was Sherri's idea, and she instructed James how to do it, what to do, and what to brand on her back. What do you think about that? Leave a comment down below and let us all know what you think. Not only is there evidence, including testimony from James Reyes, that the injuries Sherri suffered while she was away on her kidnapping adventure were self-inflicted, but there is also ample evidence that Sherri planned the hoax kidnapping, and she planned it some time in advance. Take a listen to when law enforcement informs Sherri that they know about this.
I know you're scared.
Cannot believe that it is James.
I can't believe James told us the truth. That's what I can't believe. He passed a polygraph, Sherri.
So did Keith.
No, he didn't. He was inconclusive. And he was involved.
So James is involved, but I don't.
James picked you up. You called James to pick you up. You mailed him a letter with your address. You used a burner phone to call another burner phone for James to come and get you.
You're saying since you're married you haven't called? So now it's your opportunity to say, were there issues between you and Keith? Is that why you needed to leave? I mean, we read your text message. We're already aware of some issues, but enlighten us if that's the case. If there was a valid reason for you to leave, let me know what that was.
James said you had your jaw broken by him, and that's why he came and got you, because you were in an abusive relationship.
I love my husband.
So, were you in an abusive relationship with him? Have you told other people in your life that, like China, that Keith has abused you in the past when that wasn't true? China told me that day 2, where there was an incident at a party that you got hurt playing, like, I don't know, Wii or Pictionary or something, and then you told other friends that Keith hurt you. When there was witnesses at the party that said that you got hurt during a party. But then you go tell James that you were being hurt, you were being abused, and you couldn't come forward because Keith has friends in law enforcement. If all of is that true?
So, yep, that is what James told police, that Sherri reported that she had her jaw broken by her husband, Keith, and that she was in an abusive relationship. And apparently James Reyes went and picked her up and took her to his place to save her from the abuse. And of course, this kind of story that Sherri would tell someone completely tracks with her history of reporting abuse from basically everybody she's been close to in her life, it seems, right? My friends, there will be a part 2 to this video because there was just so much to unpack, inspired by the ID docuseries. I have so much more to tell you about as we look back at the interviews and the police records and the evidence that is available to the public. We are able to debunk the additional big lies that Sherri Papini told just recently that aired in that docuseries, and we are able to uncover many more of Sherri Papini's dirty, dark secrets. But before we go tonight, you have to watch this. It is the very end of Sherri Papini's interrogation. In August of 2020. This is some pretty eerie crap. Watch this.
One more question, just for your own welfare. Do you feel like harming yourself?
Welfare.
Do you feel like harming yourself?
No, I just want to hug my children and go home.
Okay. Well, you're free to go and do that. If you change your mind and want to come forward and talk to us,
This is all my fault because I talk to other men. This cannot be.
you might have come and started talking to me.
Sherri was being interviewed for over an hour, and for probably about 3/4 of that hour, she was sobbing and wailing and, oh, this can't be James, this can't be James, with her head in her hands and making all these kind of noises and contorting her face and just, oh my gosh. And then at the very end, when the interview is over and she has no more talking to do or lies to tell, in just a moment, just like that, she composes herself, she stands up, and she walks out just like nothing ever happened.